In this video, I'm going to show you how the principles of meditation and Buddhism were used in the Star Wars movies. So I'll start off by saying that meditation can be really helpful for boosting our mood and improving our mental health. I've even made a previous video about this, and the link for it is in the description below. This video will instead focus on summarizing some interesting points from the book, The Dharma of Star Wars by Matthew Bortolin. This book talks about how the Star Wars movies apply the teachings of meditation and Buddhism in them. Just so you know, this book came out before the recent Star Wars movies of episode 7 and later it came out, so it just focuses on episodes 1 to 3 and 4 to 6. Now, I know this can sound kind of crazy to a lot of you. I mean, isn't Star Wars just supposed to be about purely entertainment based on its action scenes? I mean, it's got its cool spaceships, the lightsaber battles, it's all that science fiction, the freaky looking aliens and monsters, Yoda. Like, how the heck do movies like this incorporate Buddhism and meditation? Well, apparently a lot more than you would imagine, as the author of this book he did write an entire book discussing how meditation and Buddhism are used in these movies. Now, I don't have the time to provide a thorough analysis of meditation and Buddhism in Star Wars, so instead of just talking about a couple of scenes in the movies and how the book focuses on these scenes and talks about how these scenes apply the teachings of meditation and Buddhism. So first, I'll talk about what I found to be one of the key points the book makes and how these points are applied in the Star Wars movies. One of the key points the book discusses is that we can all free ourselves from suffering by facing and embracing it with mindfulness. That is, instead of denying our suffering and trying to suppress it, we should recognize it and acknowledge it. And that's what meditation can really help with. As meditation helps us calm down, it helps us be aware of our emotions and our thoughts, and as a result, it helps us recognize and accept our suffering. So an example of how this point is emphasized in Star Wars, the author of that book, The Dharma of Star Wars, talks about the scene in episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, I know a lot of people really despise the episodes 1 through 3, but I think this scene does a good job of showing how the movies try to include the teachings of Buddhism and meditation. So in this scene, Anakin Skywalker, before he becomes Darth Vader, is in the planet Tatooine. And just so you know, this is the same planet that Luke Skywalker was initially in at the beginning of episode 4, A New Hope. So in this scene, Anakin, he invades the Tusken Raiders' village and finds his mother there held captive by them until she eventually dies shortly afterwards. Now, what then happens is Anakin Skywalker gets very angry, understandably, and has a lot of hatred towards these Tusken Raiders, and he takes it out on them because they killed his mother, so he gets his revenge by killing them. Now, this scene shows how Anakin's act of revenge only intensifies his anger and rage. Now, I'm not saying I blame Anakin. I mean, I myself would probably feel a lot of hate towards anyone who killed my mother, and I definitely empathize with him in that scene. But the movie does do a good job of showing how getting revenge does not lead to happiness. The author of the book mentions how Anakin didn't follow the teachings of meditation and Buddhism, which teach us to be mindful of our anger. And that because that his suffering increased and the dark side with him grew, which eventually led to him transforming into Darth Vader. Now, this is in contrast to earlier scenes in these movies where Obi-Wan Kenobi and the other Jedis were trying to teach Anakin the importance of meditation and breathing so that he could calm down and be aware of his suffering, and Anakin didn't really follow their teachings very well. The author mentions that we don't just get rid of suffering by acting out on our anger. The act of just getting rid of our suffering leads to more suffering. And this is because we're not in acceptance of our original suffering. The author of the book mentions that meditation frees us from suffering by calming down our minds and bringing awareness to our suffering. the book talks about how the biggest thing the Buddha noticed is that suffering is not external to us, but within ourselves. And Anakin, in this case, suffers because he can't accept his weakness, his failure of not being able to save his mother, and he blames himself for it, instead of just peacefully being in acceptance with it. Now, of course, this sounds a lot easier said than done because, who wouldn't be angry at someone who were to kill their own mothers? But, the book mentions how the lesson we can take from all of this is that instead of having self-hatred for our failures, we need to learn to accept failure as a part of life. And without failure, we can't grow as people and become better versions of ourselves. I mean, it was even Michael Jordan himself who said that the reason why he became the best basketball player in NBA history is because he missed so many shots and had to learn to embrace failures. So he didn't become the best because of his skill or because he was so great at shooting the ball, but actually because he missed so much and he had to learn to accept that. Whereas, most people, if they were to miss so many shots, they would become discouraged and give up. Now, another interesting part of the book that I really enjoyed reading was its discussion on meditation and how it was used in Star Wars in the scene in episode 5 of The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke Skywalker trains with Yoda in the planet Dagobah. So during that scene, Luke mentions how he senses a dark presence in a nearby cave, and Yoda just tells Luke to go check it out. Yoda mentions how the cave contains the dark side of Force, or all the suffering in life, such as people's hatred and anger. The book mentions how if Luke can confront his own suffering with compassion and acceptance, then he can overcome the dark side within himself. Now, for those of you who've, seen the movie and can remember this scene, you remember that after Luke goes into the cave, he sees an imagination of Darth Vader or a hallucination there, and then they have a lightsaber battle together. Luke then defeats the hallucination of Darth Vader, chops off his head. Then the movie tries to surprise the audience by showing that after Vader's helmet explodes, his face is revealed to be the same as Luke's. So why does the movie do this? The book talks about the reason why the movie does this was to show the audience that Luke didn't really defeat Darth Vader as he destroyed a part of himself, and that Luke himself was the cause of his suffering, not Darth Vader. And how does this relate to meditation and Buddhism? It relates to them because the point of meditation is to help us overcome our suffering by helping us realize we are the cause of our own suffering and that it's not caused externally. So if Luke was successful and applied the teachings of meditation, he would have shown a compassion towards Darth Vader instead of hatred towards him, and instead he did the opposite. He attacked Darth Vader, and in reality he really just attacked himself. So anyways, that concludes this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I highly recommend checking out that book, The Dharma of Star Wars, if you're a fan of the Star Wars movies, and or if you're into meditation. The book's pretty easy to read. It's not too long, and I really enjoyed it, as I found it to be a really easy book to read. So before you guys go, just want to ask you guys to leave a comment in this video describing your thoughts on it. If you enjoyed the video, please click on the like button and subscribe. I'll see you next time.